Good morning.
Good morning, Travis.
Good morning, Candace. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Brittany.
You guys look so happy to be here right now.
Definitely. I'm just trying to get all my stuff together here.
It's Saturday morning.
It is Saturday morning. I have a room full of dogs here.
Uh,
Hey, I'll trade with one of y'all. Y'all can go and do property inspections for me, and I can, I'll do your math homework for you.
I don't know that I'll make that trade.
Yeah, trust me. You don't want to do it. It's not fun.
I'll show you with my other machine here what I mean about room full of dogs. There's one.
Oh,
There's two. And King of the World over there. There's number three.
holy
okay,
moly, that is a big dog.
right.
Is that a Great Dane, or what kind of dog is that?
A Weimaraner.
Wow.
He's a big boy. He's old. He's 12. And the brown one laying on the floor is 11. And the pit bull is, we don't really know. She's about 7 or 8, something like that. So,
Time to get a puppy and liven things up a little bit.
definitely not until something happens with Elmer, because he and puppies, that ain't a thing.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely at the grumpy old man stage of life, and all that nonsense, he ain't dealing with it.
Awesome.
Do they like cats?
They've never been around cats. We don't have a cat, and my parents don't have cats, and none of our neighbors right around us have cats.
Right.
So they've never been. I cannot tell you how they would be with a cat, because they've never interacted with one. I mean, I have a suspicion that they would be fine, because they've been around, you know, other animals, but I don't really know the answer to that.
We have three, and two of the small. We have a chocolate lab and two smaller ones, and the two small ones get miffed. So I don't know what they would do.
Yeah, I think small dogs just have a different personality than big dogs. I mean, I love all dogs, but I'm definitely partial to big dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just being on the farm, we always had big dogs.
Right.
And my mom and dad now they've kind of gone back to small dog, because they're in their 70s, and their last big dogs got elderly, and trying to, when you're in your 70s, the last thing you need to be trying to do is help a big dog get up off the floor,
Right.
now dog. And so they have a cockapoo now, and they love him, but he's weird. I mean, like, I love the dog, but he's just,
Right.
and I don't know. Big dogs have a whole different personality. They're just sort of like, whatever, dude.
Right.
They're just lazy and chill out. But like Amber's over there, they're super cute. So
Oh, just because his leash is on and he thinks he's going on a walk, but when we're in class, he wants me to throw the ball. He'll start crying. You'll see the ears behind me and in front, and he's very needy.
yeah. Well, I mean, I have needy ones too. I mean, they can be needy. Right now they're just all chilling out. But if somebody were to say the W word, that would be bad.
Oh.
Because they'd be up and ready to go, all three of them. So. But even the big dude at 12, it might take him a while to get going, and he might fall 3 or 4 times before we can get out the door, but he still wants to go. So
No.
he's on all kinds of anti-inflammatory. I used to think people were crazy for, I spent $5,000 at the vet. I wouldn't even think twice. I mean, any little hiccup and he goes. I mean, he was at the cardiologist 2 weeks ago because they heard a heart murmur at his normal vet appointment. And I walked out of there and it was like $1,200 for the dog to go to the damn cardiologist. And I'm like, I'm insane.
Did he have a heart murmur?
He does, but they don't know. They don't know what the reason is. There's really not, and it doesn't seem to be impacting him. So it's going to be kind of something they just monitor, And he's already 12, and he's a 110-pound dog, so he's already on the long end of things for sure. Right. So he's at the point in his life where we're not going to do anything dramatic. Right. Anyway, because we just wouldn't want to put him through anything like that. So, it's more about what can we do to make him, comfortable and enjoy things now. We have hardwood floors in the whole house and there's rugs everywhere. I mean, I bet we have 30 runners throughout his house because he falls. And so
that's how our chocolate lab is.
So we got rugs everywhere, and they're for him. And so he, just like the sofa he's sleeping on in my office here, there's no legs on this sofa because he can't get up there without a step anymore. So I took the legs off of it and it's just sitting on the floor. So it's low, low enough that he can get up there on it, which he likes. Yeah. So, and we figured that out because we got a new sofa in the living room and it's lower than this one. And he didn't have a problem because he had a step for like 2 years for him to get on and off the sofa. And when we got the new one, I said, well, I'm just going to take the old sofa and put it in my office. And when we got the new one, we noticed immediately that he wasn't using his step. He was able to get on and off of that one because it's about 4 inches lower. Right. And I was like, well, wait a minute. We had to take the legs off of that sofa anyway to move it to my office. Let's just put it in there without the legs on it. And so that's what we did. He loves it. This has become his bedroom. He sleeps in here at night because it's right next door to my bedroom. So he comes in here. When I go to bed, he comes in here and goes to bed. And he is not to be disturbed. He's not. When you see him on that sofa, it's because he's not gotten up yet this morning. He's not an early guy. Yeah. All right. Well, how was the homework? How is oops. Let me get here. I think I should be still connected with this thing. How has everything been so far? I know we're going to talk about math this morning, but how are we doing?
Well, the math for me is going much better, and it's because of you and, of course, YouTube. And that's been a lifesaver. But I think the biggest thing for me is that where I get hung up is when there's paragraph form questions and you have to stop and you have to dissect. Because I seem to want to, my mind goes fast. So I seem to want to go fast and not stop. Like you were saying, take the first sentence, dissect that, then go to the next and find out what the question is. What is it that they want? I go,
here's what I would tell you as the best piece of advice on those long, format things. They call them scenario-based questions, where they're giving you like a story.
Right.
Here's what I would do. Don't read the whole thing initially. Don't even, when you see a long question, don't even start to read it. Okay. Find the question mark. Find the actual question. Just kind of scan through without reading and find the question. Because there's always going to be a question in there somewhere. What is true of blah, 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 blah. Which of the following is not accurate? Because if you can find a question, you can get an idea of what the scenario is going to be about, what you're looking for. Because what you're going to find is a lot of what they give you in those scenarios is fluff. It's just, quite honestly, bullshit that you don't need it doesn't have anything to do with what they're actually asking you. Mm-hmm. And so here's what happens though. If you just start from the top and you're reading that whole scenario, you don't know what they're going to ask you about. They're not going to ask it until the end, right? And so you're trying to read this whole big long thing in super detail, so you don't know which points are important and which points are not. What I think you can do is jump to the question and say, which of the following is true regarding this easement? And you're like, okay, well, it's an easement question. So I know anything that I'm going to read in here that might have to do with an easement, I'm going to pay special attention to. And if they, but if they talk about the fact that there's a chandelier attached to the house, that doesn't have anything to do with an easement. So I'm just going to skip over. You see what I'm saying? It helps you prioritize the information you're taking in so you can better answer the question they're going to ask you. So that's, to me, that's like a really good strategy with the long format questions, is find the question first and then go back and read, and and so you know what things to pay special attention to.
Okay, thank you.
Like, I've been kind of having the same issue that like Deborah's been having. Like, I've been trying to like teach myself, like I teach my students, of like how to handle these long word problems, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I teaching my kids, because this ain't working for me. Like, and it's made me like kind of rethink about not only how I'm answering it, but how I need to teach it in the future. So thanks for that. Kudos to you, because you're teaching a teacher and I appreciate it. But like my biggest thing is knowing when to do what formula. Like that is the hardest thing. I got the math I got the math all day long. I can do it, no problem. It's just when to do what formula. Like, so, that's my biggest thing.
So I think that's where I'm not a big fan of memorization in general as a learning tactic, but I do think memorization of the formulas and what they go to is probably the best way, in the sense of, if they're asking me about property tax, I know it's going to be this formula. So as soon as I see property tax, I know to write down that formula with the tax bill on the top, the assessed value, and the rate on the bottom. And so like just learning how to like sort of, it's almost like sight reading when you're teaching children. Like there are, you teach some words phonetically, like sound them out, but then there are certain words that you're going to see so often, you're just better off memorizing them. Like the and you don't need to sound that out. You just need to see it, know it. And so I think memorization of the formulas is probably the best path. So like, for example, it's an acreage math question. Okay, I know as soon as I see it's an acreage question, I'm going to write down that formula, which has, square footage on the top, acres, and 43,560 on the bottom. If I see it's a property tax question, I'm going to write down tax bill on the top, assessed value, and rate on the bottom before I even read the question. Just when I see, okay, it's this kind of thing they're talking about, and you can see that from the first sentence. Travis has purchased 0.75 acres of land, and he's dividing it into lots that are 11,000 square feet. You're dealing with square footage and acreage. There's only one formula we've got that has both square footage and acreage in it, so write that formula down before you even read the rest of the question. And then it kind of gives you like a roadmap to how to do the math for the rest of the question.
Because I think like and I don't know how everyone else is, but like that's the one thing that I've been struggling with. Because even whenever I went to, Learn, Test, Pass, and did like the practice quizzes, like I try to do those without notes, so that like when we take a quiz, I feel like I'm a little bit more confident in it. But yeah, it's just those formulas just get me every single time, especially whenever it's like a two-step problem where you have to figure out one and then you have to go and then figure out the other.
Well, and I think that's weird. I think that's why figuring out before you even start down the path, figuring out, okay, it's this kind of a question, so I know I have to use this formula. Once you write the formula down, now you've got a roadmap of, okay, to get there, I need this. They're asking me for property taxes. I know this is the formula that gives me property taxes, so I know somewhere I have to use this formula. And it tells me I need to know the assessed value and the rate. Did they give me the assessed value and the rate? Or am I going to have to figure that out? So you kind of work your way backwards, I guess.
We get like scrap paper and pencil to 'Cause I know the
Yeah, when you
test
take
is
the PSI exam, they give you one piece of scrap paper at a time.
okay.
And once you've exhausted it, you just raise your hand and they'll give you another one.
Perfect. Okay.
Travis, are we allowed to have our formulas, or we have to remember them?
You have to remember them. You're not allowed to have any sort of notes, anything, nothing written down.
Is there like is the math portion of the test, is it pretty big, or are there just like certain small select math questions that we'll have?
There are small select math questions. The problem is we don't know what those small ones will be. I mean, there are some that I can definitively tell you will be there. Those are the ones that we spend the most time on in class.
Okay.
I will never, let me say this, I don't cover all of the math that's in the syllabus. The reason for that is over the last several years, they have dramatically reduced the number of math questions on the test. But there are certain types of math which I think you are almost guaranteed to see. And those are the ones that we spend substantial time on. I think you are 100% guaranteed to see property tax calculations on the test. And so it's important that you get that one. I think there's probably a 90% chance that you see some type of an acreage conversion. So it's important to get that. As we move forward in the class, there will be other math where I think, okay, this is a 50-50. And I'll kind of try to tell you along the way. And the reason I tell you is I want you to also prioritize. If you to pick a piece of math and say, okay, I'm going to spend time on this, you need to know that that's time invested wisely. Right. I've seen people, like, for example, we didn't spend much time talking about mill rates. I think that's because the odds of you getting a specific mill rate question are relatively low. That's probably a 1 in 4 chance at best that you see a mill rate question. But there's a 100% chance you'll see a percentage-based tax question, as far as I can tell. Because I've never had anybody say, oh, I didn't see a property tax question, and so I try not to put the same amount of weight on each topic because I'm trying to prioritize them based on what I think you're going to see.
Okay.
Travis, I have a question about the quiz. I think the 4 to 6, chapter 4 to 6 quiz. The question 4 about which of the following is not an example of a voluntary alienation. I picked C, which is transfer of title by will.
Mm-hmm.
But it gave me an X, and then the right answer was gift deed, and it kind of confused me.
No, that's been corrected. There was a if you look at the explanation, The explanation makes it clear that
exactly
correct.
Okay, so the one is transfer by will, is involuntary. Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Hey, Travis,
yes.
On the excise tax question on the property tax, how did you get 500? Because I did not get the whole section. It didn't say anything about the 5. In the formula, there was 500 on the left. I don't know how you got 500.
Because that's the number. The excise tax is $1 for every $500 in sales price. That's just the rate that's set from the state. So anytime you're calculating an excise tax, it's always going to be the purchase price divided by 500, assuming the purchase price is in an increment of $500. Remember, when you're calculating an excise tax, the state only recognizes purchase prices in increments of 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000. So that if you tell the state you sold your house for $150,150, they'll say, no, you didn't. They'll say you're lying to me because they don't recognize that as a number. $150,150 to them is not a number because they say it has to be either $150,000 flat or $150,500. That's the only numbers they recognize. And they always round up. So if you tell them you sold your house for $150,150, they're going to say you sold it for $150,500. And that's the number you would use to then divide by 500 to calculate the excise taxes. Okay, so I've got here, let me see. I think I have to make myself, I'm gonna make myself so I can share here. Do this. Oh, it's already there. Okay. Share. So we said we were gonna go over the math. So here is the math packet from chapter 3. And I'm going to skip down to the homework section, because the homework section is, you know, realistically more what I would expect that you would see on a test. You know, that's kind of the way I've generally set this up. And obviously, it's a little bit different with you all taking it digitally. You know, when we first introduced the topic, you do the in-class section, and then, you know, for homework, you would take it home. Well, obviously, it's all homework because you're always at home. And so that's why the sheets are set up a little bit. It can seem awkward, but that's the reason they were set up that way. But I'm just looking at the homework section. Of course, if you have questions from the other section, I'm happy to answer those as well. But this first one here says, all right, here we go. What is the annual tax due on a home that has an assessed value of $265,000 in an area with a total ad valorem tax rate of $1.03 per 100? So again, find the question. What is the tax due? So math, don't try to digest all those numbers when you read through them. Nobody can do that. I can't do it. You can't do it. You can't read these questions and digest, you know, all these numbers. But you can find the question. And this is sort of what I was talking about with Deborah earlier, right? You know, it's just let's zoom in and just find the question. What is the annual tax due? Right there, they've told you the math they want you to do. They've essentially said, this is the math we want you to do. We want you to calculate a property tax. We only know one formula that allows us to calculate a property tax. And as the T-bar looks like this, it has the property tax bill on the top, and then on the bottom, it has the assessed value and the tax rate. Does that look familiar to everybody as far as the formula goes for calculating a property tax? So here's the way I would work myself through it. Before I read any of the rest of the question, you have to resist this temptation to just read the whole question and just, you know, chew through it all. Before I do that, go back to the question. What are they asking me for? Now that I've written the formula down, which one of these do they want to know? And what's the answer to that?
The property tax value, or the property tax bill, sorry.
They want to know the bill, correct? What is the annual tax due? That's the same thing as the bill. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
If they want to know the bill, then I need to know these other two things down here at the bottom. I need to know the assessed value. I'm going to look to see if they gave it to me. Now I'm going to start reading through here. What is the annual tax due on a home that has an assessed tax value of $265,000? What am I going to do with that number?
Put it in the
Plug it into the assessed value.
It's going to get plugged in right there, right?
Right.
So here's what my math looks like. The tax bill is going to be $265,000 down here on the bottom. And then what other number do I need to know? I need to know the what?
Tax rate.
The tax rate in an area with a total ad valorem tax rate of $1.03 per 100. Well, that's going to get brought down right here. And here's the thing. $1.03 doesn't make sense to me, but what can I just do with that? Drop the dollar sign and put what behind it?
A percentage.
A percent sign. So that just becomes 1.03%. Does that make sense for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
We good with that? And since they are side by side, and this up here at the top, this is my question mark. This is the thing I want to know, right? That's the thing I don't know yet that I want to know. The two numbers I have are side by side. So what does that mean? The T-bar says I'm going to do math-wise.
Multiply.
Multiply.
I'm gonna multiply them side by side. I what?
Multiply.
Multiply, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna punch in my calculator, and that didn't come up for you all, did it? No. It's all right. I've got my calculator here on the screen. 265 times 1.03%. And math-wise for me, that looks like, oops, let me erase that. That looks like $2,729.50.
So we would never round, right?
It didn't ask you to round. You only round unless if it asks you to round.
Gotcha.
If it says rounding to the nearest dollar or nearest $10, and you do what they do, but otherwise don't round.
Okay.
Does everybody see where that number comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the annual tax bill. Now, I'm going to do, and so this, since we're here like as a review session type thing, I want to make it, completely worth your while. I want to go a little step further here. I'm going to take that same tax bill, 2729.50. Now the question did not ask me to do this. This is just something I'm showing you how you can continue to work with it. 2729.50 is for how long? That's a bill for what period of time?
1 year.
Annual, yearly.
Per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could we prorate that? Could we break it down into smaller pieces if we needed to?
Yeah.
Yes.
So like later on in the class, we're going to talk about paying your annual property taxes as part of your monthly mortgage payment. How do you think we would figure how much of this would go into a monthly mortgage payment? How much would we add to our monthly mortgage payment for property taxes? We would take, well, how many months are there in a year?
12.
12. So we would take, to get the monthly amount, we would say 2729.50 divided by what?
12.
Divided by 12. And if we did that, we'd end up with 227, what is it, 45, 46, 4588, like that,
Yep.
per month. Is everybody all right with that?
Yep.
Could we break it down into a daily expense?
Yes.
Well, if we've got 2729.50 per year, and we wanted to break it down to daily, how many days are there in the year?
360.
360.
360 days in the year, correct? And
Right.
so we could do that math, and that's 7.5819 per day. So that's just an example of taking an annual expense, which is how almost everything that we calculate in this class is calculated as an annual expense. But then we often go further than that and break it down into monthly or daily. So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. We all good there?
Yep.
Okay, good. Good. Let me go back over here to the worksheet here. All right, number 2, it says, if the assessed tax value of a property is $347,000 and the county tax rate is $1.25 per 100. Again, I'm just scanning, I'm looking for the question. I'm not trying to absorb all this. Per 100 evaluation, what is the annual real property tax? There's my question. What is the annual tax bill? They want to know how much we're going to pay annual in taxes. Well, again, that's the same formula we just worked with the tax bill on the top and the assessed value and the rate on the bottom. They're asking us for this one. So we got to find the other two. I'm looking for the assessed value. It says if the assessed tax value is 347, so that number is just going to get brought down right here, correct?
Right.
So it looks like this. And then I'm also looking for the rate, and the county tax rate is $125 per 100. So that's going to get brought down here as 1.25 per 100, or get rid of that and call it 1.25%. Everybody all right with that?
Mm-hmm.
And if I type that into my calculator, $347,000 times 1.25%,
$4,337.50.
$43.37.50 for an annual tax bill. If you can handle those two questions, you got one of the math questions on the test knocked out. And there's only going to be like probably 8, 9. So you should feel pretty good that you got one. I mean, and that's one you're guaranteed to see, like something similar to that. Just a basic property tax calculation. Can we handle that?
Yes.
Good, good. Because I think that's the other thing that can happen with the math. I think people can get frustrated with the more complex math questions, which is understandable, and then they just throw their hands up at it and go, I can't do the math. Well, don't worry about those. Focus on the ones that you can tackle, so at least you know you can get, because if there's only 8 or 9 math questions, well, then get half of them right. Get the more straightforward ones and leave the more complex ones off to the side. That's okay. Number 3, what's the total ad valorem property tax due on a home which has an assessed tax value of $138,000 and is located in Cary, where the county assesses a tax rate of 75 cents per 100 of value and the city charges an additional 25 cents per 100 of value? So here's my question. What's the total ad valorem property tax due? Same exact formula. Annual tax bill is equal to the assessed value times the rate. They want to know the tax bill, so I'm looking for the assessed value.
$1,380.
And they told us it's $138,000, right?
Right.
Okay, so here's what my math is going to look like. I got $138,000. And that's the other thing. Don't argue with the formula. The formula is the formula. If it says the assessed value goes on the bottom, where do you put it?
Bottom.
On the bottom. I think that's another mistake I see people make. They think they're going to rewrite the formula. Well, they're looking for this, so I'm putting that on top. No, that's not the way this works. The formula is what the formula is. If it's on the bottom, it's on the bottom always. Okay? So $138,000 is located in Cary, where the county assesses a tax rate of 75 cents per 100. So we're looking for the rate. And the city charges an additional 25 cents. So I'm going to highlight the whole, and by the way, you can use highlighters on the test. That's okay. Now, not when you get to the PSI exam, you're taking it on a computer, but, until you get accustomed to, there's no shame in underlining and that sort of thing. That's why you have the ability to print these things out. So the tax rate is 75 cents and 25 cents. Well, the word and, what are you going to do with those two things?
And
You're going to add them together. So you got 75 cents plus 25 cents. That looks like $1 to me all day long. How about y'all?
right.
So the rate I'm going to fill in over here is 1.00%, which means the property tax bill I'm going to come up with is $1,380. We all okay with that?
Yes.
Good. Number 4 says if the city tax rate is 25 cents per 100 and county tax rate is 80 cents per 100, what is the assessed tax value of a property which has a $3,867 annual tax bill? This is where you recognize it's the same formula, because look at the things that they're talking about. They're talking about, let's find a question. What is the assessed tax value? Well, first of all, how many formulas do we know that even have assessed tax value in it? Just what?
One.
Just one. So you've narrowed it down already to that's the formula, because that's the only one that has assessed tax value in it. And it's on the bottom of that formula. What's on the top? What goes on the top?
Right.
The bill.
For annual tax bill.
Annual tax bill goes on the top, and then what goes down here on the bottom right?
Percent.
The rate.
The rate. I always circle the thing they're asking me for. They're asking me what is the assessed value, correct?
Yes.
Now this is where you just have to read the formula. Don't try to make up your own. Read the formula. To get the assessed value, what does the formula say I'm going to do? Take the annual tax bill and then do what?
Divide.
Divide
Divide it by
the rate.
tax rate. If you follow the T-bar, it will take you to where you want to be. So it says to get to the assessed value, I need to know two things. I need to know the annual tax bill. Did they give it to me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's right there, right?
Mhm.
So my annual tax bill is $38.67. Okay, annual tax bill is $38.67. And then to finish out my T-bar, the other thing I'm looking for is the tax rate, which they also gave me. They gave it to me in two pieces. So what am I going to do with those two pieces?
Add
Add
them.
them together.
I'm going to add them together. 25 cents plus 80 cents is $1.05, which is the same thing as 1.05%. And again, the math step is, because it's top and bottom, it's not going to be multiplication, it's going to be
Division.
division. And it's always top divided by the bottom. Again, you don't get to pick the order. This is another mistake people make. Oh, I have to put the big number in first. Well, sometimes, but that's not always true. You put whatever's on top in first. You type it in the calculator exactly the way you encounter it in the T-bar. The first number goes in first. So you type in the calculator 38.67 divided by 1.05%. And if you do that, I come up with 368.
385. 71 cents.
Something like that.
Yep.
285, not 385, or the 3, it's 2. There we go. And that is our answer. That's our assessed value, 368, 285, and about 71 cents.
So, Travis, you said that we can print off our midterm and our final for you, and that way we can go and highlight everything. Is that correct?
Not the final, but the midterm.
Okay, just the midterm.
Yeah.
Okay, and how does, is it set up just like our quizzes where you have to click each one, or is it just like a list of?
I don't know. I changed the setting that allowed you to print it, so I don't know. You'll have to tell me when you go through the midterm what option it gives you to print. So, because
Okay.
I don't see your side.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, number 5 here says the property is located in Raleigh, and Raleigh has a city tax rate of 35 cents per 100, while Wake County has a tax rate of 75 cents per 100. What's the assessed value of the property based on a tax bill of $67.50? What's the assessed value of the property? I only know one formula. It's got assessed value in it. It's right there. It's got tax bill on the top. That's a very fat pen. And the rate on the bottom. And they want to know which one of these?
Assessed value.
The assessed value. So I'm looking for the tax bill, which is right there. And I'm looking for the rate, which is these two numbers, right?
Right.
Which I'm going to add together. So I got 0.35 plus 0.75. That's $1.10. So here's what my formula looks like when I fill it in. My tax bill up here on the top is $67.50. My rate down here on the bottom is 1.10%. And what does the T-bar say my math's gonna be?
Assess.
They're gonna be
What's my math look like?
dividing.
Dividing, right? Top divided by the bottom.
Mhm.
67.50 divided by 1.10%. And that is 613.
13,000.
613.
636.
636.
36.
For an assessed value. Is anybody not feeling comfortable with what we've done so far? I mean, because this is the time to speak up, you know, to make sure. Are we all okay so far?
So it is okay to go ahead and just add your, like whenever you're doing city taxes and like county taxes, just add them together instead of doing it. Because I was doing it two separate problems.
Oh, you're doing two separate bills and then adding them together?
Yeah.
You can do it that way. I
Okay.
mean, I think it's easier to just add the rates together.
Oh no, it
And get
definitely
one
is.
total tax rate. But if you'd rather calculate two, you know, the city tax bill and the county tax bill and then add them together, you can come up with the same answer.
Okay.
Yeah, it works either way. All right, number 6, just real quickly, since we're working through all of them, they want to know what is the current assessed tax value. So again, I'm doing this. It's just repetitive. I'm doing the same thing. They want to know the assessed tax value. I'm going to write out the formula, and I always start with the thing I want to know. They want to know the assessed value. Now fill in the rest of the formula around it, right?
Right.
I know tax bill is up here. And I know rate is down here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to circle the assessed value because that's what they want me to find. And now it's time to hunt for the other stuff. So let's see if I can find the tax bill. Well, annual property tax bill of $12,850. Good. Now let me see if I can find the rate. Orange County charges 82 cents per 100.
Mm-hmm.
There's the rate. So I'm ready to fill my work in here. My tax bill is $12,850. My rate is 0.82%. My math is division because it's top and bottom. And so it looks something like this: 12,850 divided by 0.82%. And what does that tell you that property is worth? Don't be afraid of big numbers.
1,567,073.17.
Yep. And some change. $1,567,073 and some change for an assessed value. Which makes sense when you think about it, because it, you know, almost $13,000 annual tax bill is a pretty steep tax bill, so it's probably a pretty valuable property.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 7, if the assessed value of a home located in Chapel Hill in Orange County is blah, 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 and the city levies this rate while the county tax rate is this, what is the total tax bill? Notice I'm just looking for the question, right? What is the total tax bill to the homeowner on September 1 of 2011? That's called giving you a lot of fluff. Of course it's billed on September 1 because all tax bills come out when?
September 1st.
September 1st. Doesn't change your math. You're still just calculating a tax bill. And the formula we know that has tax bill in it has it right here on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And down here on the bottom is the assessed value and the rate. They want to know the bill. We need to find the assessed value. It says the assessed value is right here. We need to know the rate. It says the rate is 90 cents plus 85 cents. So I'm going to add those together. 0.90 plus 0.85 is $1.75, which is the same thing as 1.75%, right? Oops. Try to keep it color coded. I feel like the color coding helps a little bit if you're a visual learner, like you see where I'm pulling things from. Does that help, Deborah?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I try to do that when I'm doing it on here because I feel like it's helpful.
I love your slides.
What's that?
I love your slides.
Oh, well, some are better than others. It's always a continual process of updating them. The assessed value is $542,950. And of course, they're side by side. So our math is that we're going to multiply. So 542,950 times 1.75%. I've got an annual tax bill here of $9501.625 or 63 cents.
63.
Yeah, ish, somewhere around there. Most of the time on the test, by the way, it will say rounded to the nearest dollar. So most of the time, that's why when people say, well, I don't know, was it supposed to be 62 or 63? My usual answer is I don't care. They're both the same answer because on the test, it'll usually say, to the nearest whole dollar. And so your pennies aren't going to matter. If it was to the nearest dollar, the answer would be 9502. And they'll never give you answers on the test that are close enough that rounding is going to matter in your final answer. Now, what I don't recommend, and this is where people go crazy, and this is why I say don't round. Some people round every single calculation along the way. Like you can't do that because when you start taking this number, rounding it times another number that's rounded, divided by this number that's rounded, your end answer does get off a lot. So what I say is don't round at all until you get to the very end, and then you're gonna round it the way they ask you to round it. Okay. This is the question you hope you see on the test. What is a mill rate expressed as a decimal? How do we convert a mill rate to a decimal?
Divide by 1,000.
Mill rate divided by 1,000.
Yep. Mill rate divided by 1,000 equals a decimal rate. Just like that. So that looks like a mill rate of 18 to me, divided by 1,000. That gives me 0.018. Everybody all right with that?
Yep.
Super straightforward. You just got to know. It's sort of like knowing the excise tax rate is divided by 500. You got to know when you see a mill rate, you're going to divide by 1,000.
So Travis, on the last question, when is the lien on the property?
Oh.
Is it September 1st or January?
Sorry, I skipped that part. Thank you for pointing that out. When is the lien? When does this become a lien on the property? And you're talking about this last question right here.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. When does this become a lien on the property? This last little question right here. Tax liens.
Isn't it January 5th or no?
January 1st.
1st.
Becomes a lien on January 1. Becomes a lien on, remember, it's a lien we're not talking about the following January 1. It's been a lien since January 1. So in this case, let's be specific. It's a lien on January 1 of what year?
2011.
2011. That's exactly right.
When they ask a question like for the current year, it's not the current year, it would be for the following year.
What do you mean?
Because I had a question last night and it was sent about a tax lien and it was like January 1 of the current year. Mm-hmm. But it's like if we're 2020, would the current year be for 2020?
Yeah.
Even if it's March or April, we're calculating.
Correct. So
okay.
my 2020 property taxes on my house in Cary are already a lien as of January 1 of 2020.
Got it.
even though they won't be billed until September 1
September.
of 2020.
And they'll become something on January the 6th. What will they become?
Delinquent, past due.
Okay.
They're late.
And that's
people say, when are they due? Well, they're due as soon as they're billed. The minute the bill goes out, they're due. But that date doesn't really matter. What matters is when they're late, because that's when you could potentially lose your property if you don't pay. And they would become late. So what date exactly would my 2020 property taxes in Wake County become delinquent? January
7th, 6th.
January 6th of
Next year,
2021. Exactly.
Okay.
They became a lien on January 1 of 2020. They become delinquent on January 6th of 2021. Does that help, Candace?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Number 9, what's the equivalent decimal tax rate to a mill rate of 13.5? Again, that's the same exact thing. Mill rate divided by 1,000 gives you the decimal. They want to know the decimal. So that looks like 13.5 divided by 1,000 is 0.0135 for a decimal. Everybody good there?
Yes. Question.
Yep.
If you already know that the mill rate is 1,000, is that right?
The mill rate is per 1,000.
Per 1,000. Okay. If you already know that, can you take the 13.5 and just move the decimal over 2 spots, 2 places?
3 spots.
3, 1, 2. Yeah, 3.
If you can remember that.
All that, huh?
If you can, I mean, if you can remember that, sure, you know.
Okay.
But you just make sure one way or another you're consistent, whatever is, because dividing by 1,000 is the same thing as moving the decimal 3 spaces.
Okay.
Just make sure you move it 3, because I can tell you what the answer choices are going to be. Here's what the answer choices are going to look like on the test. That's what the choices are going to look like. So you can't be half-assed like, oh, is it 2 or 3? Because they're going to both be there, right? Okay. So you got to have it nailed. And that's why, to me, I like dividing it by 1,000. It's a little bit more work, but you don't screw it up.
Okay.
So, and it's, I mean, obviously, you don't want to miss a question that easy. So.
That's right.
Elmer's purchasing a property on August 18th, 2019. The home has annual ad valorem taxes in the amount of $4,800. If the closing is being prorated using a 360-day year, how much of the annual tax bill will Elmer be responsible for? So here's what I like to do. First of all, here's the question. How much of the annual tax bill will Elmer be responsible for? Is Elmer the buyer or the seller?
The buyer.
Okay. So here's what I like to do to answer prorated tax questions. And this will actually help you. If you will adopt this method, it seems like a lot of work, but I will tell you there's a method to this madness, because later on in the class, when we get to more complex prorations, this will help you tremendously. I write this down. I write down the seller owes taxes, and I break the year up from January 1, because that's the first day of the year, through what's the last day the seller's going to pay property taxes on that property?
August 18th.
August 18th.
August 18th. Here's why I love doing this. Because the buyer owes for the rest of the year, right?
Right.
Huh?
The buyer owes from what day?
August 19th.
August 18th.
August 18th.
Can't be the 18th. That's already been paid for.
It'll be the 19th.
Seller already paid for the 18th. That's why it helps to vividly write it out for yourself. So what day is it going to start?
The 19th.
19th.
The 19th through when? When is the last day that the buyer's going to pay taxes?
December 30th.
December 30th, correct?
Right, okay.
And so I always write out those two statements. So I just make it clear to myself what I'm doing. And then I ask myself, okay, which one do they want to know? Elmer is purchasing the property. So we want to know
So he'll be responsible for,
the buyer side, correct?
right?
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Just as an idea, forget the math for a second, but just as a conceptual thing. So we want to know how much the property taxes are beginning on August 19th and going through the end of the year. Is everybody with me on that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to give you a tip. Some of you will take it. Some of you won't. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong to do it your way. I will tell you that I have seen over time my way to be more consistent for people in getting the question right. I always prorate the seller's side. Whether they're asking me for the buyer side or the seller side, I always prorate the seller's side. Because then the buyer just owes the difference. Does that make sense that they're going to pay, the two of them together are going to pay the whole bill?
Mhm.
Is everybody with me on that?
Yes.
If you combine the seller's portion with the buyer's portion, it's going to add up to the total bill. So if I know the seller's portion, I can easily get the buyer's portion. Here's why I don't like doing the buyer's portion. Quick, give me a 2-second answer. How many days does the buyer owe for in the month of August? Quick. How many?
11.
How many?
11.
It's not 11, it's 12.
No, it's 30 days in the month, so
See, it's too much damn thinking.
yeah.
How many days does the seller owe for in August?
18.
See how fast that was? 18. They're closing on the 18th. The seller owes 18 days. There's no thinking involved in that. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yes.
It's much more straightforward to prorate the seller's side because it's always just going to be the day of closing. That's how many days they owe for. They owe for all the months before, and then they owe for the 18 days in August. Is everybody with me on that?
Yes.
If you start trying to do the buyer side, you got to do two things. And I don't trust you to do these two things. You got to know that it's not 11 days left in the month, it's 12 days left in the month because 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, if you count them out, that's 12 days.
Mhm.
Plus, then you got to remember how many months there are after August. Because you'd have to say, okay, and then it's September, October, November, December. So that's 4 months plus 12 days. That's too hard. What month of the year is August?
8.
It's the 8th month, right? Is everybody with me on that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the 8th month. So the seller does not owe for 8 full months because we're closing somewhere in the middle of the 8th month, correct?
Right.
Right.
So this is how every proration is going to look. Back up to the month before. What month is the month before?
July.
But what number?
7.
7 times how many days in each month?
18.
30 in each month, right?
Right.
Equals 210 plus how many days in the partial month?
12.
18.
Plus 18. We're doing the seller side.
Yeah.
Right? Stop focusing on the buyer side. Focus on the seller side. It's the 7 full months before closing plus the 18 days. Is everybody with me on that?
Yes.
That's 200 and what? 28
28 days.
days. Here's the great thing. That will tell me I can go one of two ways here now. Could I subtract this from 360 to get the buyer's days?
Yes.
It could. I don't even do that. I just go ahead and calculate how much of the bill the seller owes and then calculate how much of the bill the buyer owes. It's right there for you now. Here's what we know. The seller has got to pay for 228 days. How much do they tell us the total property tax bill is?
4,800. So
$4,800 for the whole year, correct?
Mhm.
How many days are there in the year?
360.
60.
So I'm going to divide that by 360 because I want to know how much each day costs. Are you with me?
Yep. $13.33.
So that's 13.333333 like that
Mm-hmm.
per day, right?
Right?
Times how many days for the seller?
228.
228. And so if we have 13.3333 times 228, that's $3,039, $3,040. That sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here's what's fun about this. If the seller's portion is $3,040, the buyer's just going to pay the difference, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So can't we just take the total bill, $4,800, and subtract the seller's portion? Wouldn't that give us the buyer side?
Yes.
Yeah.
1,730.
And the buyer owes 1,700 and how much?
30.
30 or
1,000.
60?
It's
60.
60.
Oh, my bad. I wrote the number down wrong. I'm so
And
sorry.
well, no, I'm just looking at it. I'm like, it's got to be 60.
So sorry.
Does that make sense? Now, here's what I know. It seems a little bit around the bend to go get the seller side just so you can get to the buyer side. But there's a reason for that. Later on in the class, when you start prorating these things, you won't know which one you'll need. When you start doing a closing statement, I don't know if I need the seller's number or the buyer's number. So the safest thing is to calculate both. And then you can just come out and pick the one you need. It's a good habit to develop right now. Just go ahead and calculate both sides and then just choose the one you need. They want to know the buyer side, no problem. 1760. Did anybody get lost along the way there?
No. That's actually how I worked it. The seller first. I put me in the seller position. I wanted my slate clean.
And that's largely what we do. Are we all okay? It's okay to speak up if you're not. Good, good. All right. It says Leslie owns a home at 123 Main Street in Garner and is selling it to Michelle with closing set to take place on October the 28th of 2019. The closing attorney is prorating the closing expenses using a 360-day year. By the way, this looks exactly like a test question. This is about the length you would expect to see. The home has an assessed tax valuation of $318,650 and is subject to total ad valorem tax rate of $1.07 per $100 of value. Based on this information, so here's the question. Finally got to the question. How much of the annual property tax bill will Leslie be responsible for? Okay, so let's write down our two statements. We know we're prorating. Does everybody recognize we're having to prorate? Because they want to know not only what is the tax bill, but how much of it one person pays. Everybody with me on that?
Right.
So I'm going to write down my two statements. Seller owes taxes beginning on January 1, because that's always the first day they owe taxes, the beginning of the year, through the closing date of October 28th.
Mm-hmm.
And then the buyer owes taxes
October 29th.
October 29th through
December 30th.
December 30th. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we always want to calculate the number of days for the seller. I always do that first. So we're closing in October, which is the 10th month, correct?
Right.
So that means there's 9 full months that the seller owes for. You always back up to the month before. So it's 9 times 30 is 270 plus the 28 days in October, 298 days. Does that make sense for everybody for the seller?
Yes.
Seller gets 298 days. Okay. Well, how much is it per day? If you look back at the previous question, the way we figured that out was we took the annual tax bill and divided by 360, right?
Correct.
Do we have the annual tax bill in this question?
No.
Nope.
We didn't give it to us, correct?
Right.
Annual tax bill. I need to know that. Gosh, I wish there was some way we could calculate an annual tax. There's not a formula we know, is there, that could help me calculate an annual tax bill?
The assessed value times the tax rate.
Won't that work?
Yes.
Right.
And so if we start looking here, the assessed value, there it is right there, correct?
Yes.
So the assessed value is 318,650. And then I can look for my rate.
107.
Let's see, what do they tell me about the rate? There it is right there. A tax rate of $1.07 per 100. So my rate is 1.07%. Does everybody see where those numbers come from?
Yes.
Mhm.
And they're side by side, so my math looks like multiplication, correct?
Yes.
Right.
318,650 times 1.07%. That equals an annual tax bill up here of 3409.
55.
55 or 56, it doesn't matter which one you got. The penny's not gonna matter, okay? Everybody okay with that number? So good?
Yes.
That's total.
Okay.
We can't deal with the total though. We've got to take that
Divided by.
and divide it by the number of days in the year, which is always what?
360.
360.
Mhm.
$9.
That's 9.4709 a day.
Correct.
Oh. My computer is going crazy. How's it doing that? Okay. And how many days is seller owed for?
298.
28.
So if I do that times 298, that means the seller's portion is 28, 22, and 35 cents. All right. Could I go ahead and get the buyer side? So if I wanted the buyer side, could I get the buyer side?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I could take the total tax bill, right, of 3409.56 and subtract 28, 22, 35, and that would give me the buyer side if I needed it, which is 687.21 for the buyer. They said, how much of the annual tax bill will Leslie be responsible for? So let me figure out who Leslie is. Leslie owns the home at 128 Main Street in Garner and is selling it. So is Leslie the seller or the buyer?
Seller.
Seller.
She's a seller. So there's my answer. 28, 22, and 35 cents. We okay? Now I'll tell you, that's about as complex as they can make a property tax question. I think you might. I think there's a reasonable chance. There's a definitive chance you're going to have one of the more simple ones, and a reasonable chance you'll have to do one like this. Make sure you can do the simple one. But if you can do the simple one, hopefully you can move up and be able to do this one. And if so, you've already knocked out like 2 of the 8 or 9 math questions on the whole test. Are we any questions about this worksheet, or are we good on it?
We're good.
Good.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I am going to close this one out. And I want to save it. So I will. Okay, now you also had chapter 4. All right. Let's work our way through this one as well. Get it shared here. All right. So, how many square feet are in a part, and I'm in the homework section. How many square feet are in a parcel measuring 4.5 acres? Pretty straightforward question. They want to know square footage, and they give me acres. What's the formula that we know, the T-bar formula that we have that has both square footage and acreage? Well, what does it look like? What goes on the top, goes on the bottom?
Square footage on top,
On the right.
acres on the left, 43560 on the right.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So they want to know how many square feet are in that thing. The only thing we need to know, because we already know 43,560 is the number of acres, and they told us that. So our math just looks like this. 4.5 acres. Oh, I color coded, sorry. 4.5 acres times 43,560. Looks like 196,020 square feet to me.
Correct.
Okay. Candace, I muted you only because it was picking up somebody in the background. You can unmute yourself if you want to, but it was picking. I'm not sure who that was talking in the background, but it's picking them up. How many acres are found in a parcel of land that measures 480 feet wide by 300 feet deep? I find it very helpful to draw myself a picture when they give me something like this, because as they get more complex, I think the pictures help a lot. So 480 feet wide by 300 feet deep. Just look something like that. And they want to know how many acres. Well, what can I get if I multiply those two numbers? If I multiply those two numbers right there, length times width, what do I end up with?
Square footage.
Square footage, right? So 480 times 300, that's 144,000. Keep putting a dollar sign. I must think about money today. 144,000 square feet. But they want to know how many acres. I have a formula where I can take that square footage and convert it to acres by using 43,560, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to know acres, the T-bar says it's going to be square footage divided by 43,560. So 144,000 divided by 43,560, that is 3.3057 acres.
Travis, on a test, would they just have 3.3 acres?
Don't know.
Okay. So
Don't
go
know.
with the closest one.
Right, exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly right. I mean, most likely, I would say they probably would have 3.3 acres. That's
Okay.
most likely how they would do the rounding. But that's why I just always say go 4 past the decimal and then don't worry about rounding. I mean, don't write down 15 numbers. Just go 4 past the decimal and you'll always be fine.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep. Number 3, the property represented by the northern half of the southern half of the southeastern quarter of, gosh, that's too long to read, of section 18 contains a total of how many acres? This is a government rectangular survey description, right?
Right.
And every section, so this section 18 right here, every section starts at how many acres?
600.
640.
640 acres. And then all we're going to do is divide that by each one of these denominators. So we divide that by 2, divided by 2, divided by 4, divided by 4, divided by 2, divided by 2. And what do you come up with for number of acres?
2.50 acres.
2.50 acres. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
You should probably wish to see a few of those on the test too.
That would be nice.
I'd say you probably got a 1 in 4 shot of seeing one of those. But the good news is, if you see it, it's slam dunk. Just you can answer that in 15 seconds because it'll always be the same thing: 640 and divide by all the denominators, all the bottom numbers. Okay. All right. This is a question that throws people for loops, and then once they figure it out, they're like, duh, why was that so hard?
I struggle with this one.
Assuming the lot below has a length of 400 feet, a depth of 200 feet, and a protected setback buffer of 10 feet inside the property line on all sides, which cannot be used, how many acres of land is available for development? So I want you to think of a setback. A setback is an area from the property line inside the property that can't be utilized, correct? Everybody with me on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So visualize the setback. Can't use that, can't use this, can't use this, can't use that, all the way around. Does that make sense? That portion of the property cannot be used. The usable portion of the property is here because of the setback buffer. Is everybody with me on the picture? Forget the question for a second, but does the picture make sense? That's what a property looks like when it has setback buffers. A setback is just an area of the property which cannot be utilized. And that usually comes from like zoning restrictions or covenants or something like that. The question wants to know not how many acres of land the property is, but how many acres of what? What do they want to know? Help me out.
Can be
Is
used.
available for development.
How many acres are available for use or for development? So talk to me. Does the question want to know the size of the full piece of property or the red box? Which one does
Red
the
box.
question?
Red box.
The red box. Is everybody with me on that?
Yes.
Here's the problem. We don't know the dimensions of the red box. We know the dimensions of the black box. We know it's 200 by 400, correct?
Right.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to put 2 dots here. Put a dot right here and a dot right here. Right there. Do we know how long that line is? How wide that is? Do we know how wide that setback is?
10 feet?
10 feet.
That's 10 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about over here? This one. How big is this?
10 feet?
10.
That's 10 feet. And up here
10.
And
is 10 feet. And down here too
10.
is 10. Does that make sense for everybody? So I'm just going to draw a straight line for you. And let's just say, oh, this straight line happens to be 400 feet long. But I want you to chop off 10 feet at the beginning of the line and 10 feet at the end of the line. How long is the line?
380.
380.
Doesn't that mean from right here to right here is 380 feet?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Everybody, you visually see that, you get it.
Get it. Got it.
What if I drew a straight line from here to here and said this is 200 feet long, but I want you to chop off 10 feet on each end of it? How long would that line be?
180.
It'd be 180 feet. So the red box, the useful portion, is not 400 by 200, it's 380 by 180. Is that clicking for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
And then it's just the math like we know it. 380 by 180. That's 68,400 square feet. And they want to know how many acres of land is available. So I can use my formula, square feet over acres and 43,560. Well, we know the square feet is 68,400 now. Divide that by 43,560. That looks like, to me, 1.5702 acres.
Correct.
And that's how much usable land you got. Is it a little bit better with a picture?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if you can build it out as a picture for yourself, I think it makes a lot more sense. Number 5 says land along Glenwood Avenue, which is zoned for commercial use, is priced at $1,268 per front foot. In a parcel that has dimensions of 1785 feet wide by 305 feet deep. What is the necessary budget for this roughly 12.5 acre purchase? Well, there's my question. What's the necessary budget for this 12.5 acre purchase? How much money do I need? Well, this property is priced per front foot. What did we say during the during class the other day about front footage? When you're looking at the dimensions of the property, which dimension is the front footage?
The first one.
The first one, right?
Right.
So there's 1,785 front feet in this piece of land.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of them costs $1,268 per front foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we do that math,
About
2,263,380. And that's all you need to know about front footage. And that is all the math I would expect you would potentially see from the acreage section.
I have a question. Did anybody else get a different printout? Because
Yeah, I think I accidentally uploaded the older version of which had the cost per lot and how many lots, and you don't have to worry about that stuff anymore.
Okay, well, I was looking at the one that you're working from today, and then I had this one and I had already done the math, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Oh, that's all right. It won't hurt you. But here's the good news: they've pared down a lot of that math, so these are the ones you need to focus on.
Right.
I mean, that's the math we've covered so far.
Cool.
Alrighty.
How do we feel?
I feel good.
Good.
Math.
Feel good.
Good.
I feel good, but I feel like I'm gonna practice some more. You know.
Yeah, you should. Good. Yeah. Absolutely.
I have a question.
Okay.
Regarding testing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it best first to take the chapter test out of the book before you attempt to take the practice on the, what is it, pass test?
Learn, test, pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, let me be clear. I think the questions in Learn, Test, Pass are much better and much better at preparing you than the ones in the book. So I would always do the ones in the book first.
Okay.
You know, because and you're just using those to point out things you don't know. Okay, I don't know this. Let me go back and look it up. Okay. And then maybe work your way through, you know, the Learn, Test, Pass stuff, and then do my quiz last, because I think that's sort of the progression of difficulty in a lot of cases. Is like, you know, from the most straightforward to the most difficult, and that's a good way to sort of build your way up.
Yeah, because the questions on Learn, Test, Pass are much more difficult, like you say,
than the book. Right.
But I'm just trying to get a better idea of which way would be best to approach all this.
I would do the ones in the book first, because that's just sort of like just the facts. Do you know the basic facts of things? And then you start getting into more of the application of those things.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so Travis, when we say the book, I haven't even opened the book. I've been on Learn, Test, Pass, and I've been reading the section that comes before all the questions. That is the book, correct?
Well, no, you've got the electronic Dearborn Modern Real Estate Practice book, which bluntly some people don't utilize. I mean, it's not that there's any additional information. I mean, you know, we cover everything that's in there, but you know, it's just a different resource.
And the questions are different.
Yeah, they're completely different. They're a lot easier than what we get on the quizzes. But I feel like you get more information and you learn a lot more on the quizzes that we get from Travis versus the ones that
Well, but you also need the, you know, you need the basic sort of questions too to get the basic information, and it's a building process. You don't want to jump right into the deep end. You like, you know, you start with the more straightforward, and then once you get, okay, I got this information down, now let me go to the ones that are going to require me to apply that knowledge.
Plus, when you do take the national and the state, as many questions as you can take, or, you know, practice tests, just prepares you for that.
That's right. And different people writing the questions. That's the other thing. You can get lulled into a sense of security if you read all just my questions, because you get very accustomed to how I ask questions. It's hard. I try to change the way I ask questions, but it's hard. You know, like, we all have a way we talk. We all have a way we think. It comes out when you write test questions. Well, when you take the licensing exam, you know, there's probably 100 different people writing those test questions. So they're going to be, you know, worded and formatted in different ways. So, well, all right, folks, unless you have other specific questions, that's what I got for you today. I think it was a productive little hour and 15 minutes or so, and hopefully you got something out of it, and I will see you all on Monday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have to have our midterm done by Monday.
Yeah, by Monday. That's right. No due date other than I'd like for you to be done with it when you come to class on Monday, because we're moving on to something else.
Yeah, and you said we're doing all 7 and 8.
7 and 8.
That's it for next week. Okay.
That's it. 7 and 8.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
You guys have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Travis.
Yes, sir.
Hey, is there a way that I could call you or you call me? I'd like to talk to you about something.
Sure. You have my cell number on my email. Just you can give me a call.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
All right. Awesome. Well,
Okay.
I greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Travis, on the last question, we figured out the cost, but it said to buy 12.5 acres. Did we go over that or did I miss that?
On the last question on,
Yeah,
oh, that worksheet has some things that have been pared down. You're looking at the original, look at the one I sent with the answers. You only need to pay attention to those questions.
okay, because it says 12, and I'm like, oh, okay, I missed that one.
Oh yeah, what is the necessary budget for this roughly 12.5 acre purchase? I got you. That's just not, it's not even, you don't need it because you know with front footage, the
Yeah,
size of the
yeah.
land doesn't matter. It's
Okay.
priced per front foot.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much.
Yep,
Have a good day.
you're welcome. You too. Nicholas, do you want just to hang around here and I can let everybody else out and you can stay around here and we can chat, or you want to call me?
Yeah, no, we can do that. We can stay on here.
All right, all right, it's just us now. Everybody else is gone.
All right, good deal. So last week, yeah, last week was a very difficult week. My great grandmother passed away.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Hey, we're not promised tomorrow. She lived a very long, 90-year life.
Oh, that's awesome, but still, it's still tough to lose somebody, but that is fantastic.
Yeah. And then one of the ladies from church, we lost her pretty close, with her. So last week was a very difficult week. Now I'm not using that as a crutch by any means, shape, or
Oh,
form. Yeah, just mentally, emotionally, it was rough. Um, so going into this upcoming week, yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot better.
well, that's good. But I mean, is there any way I can? Do you need anything from me? Is there any way I can help you? From last week, do you feel like you're? I mean, you know,
Oh, I've been watching your YouTube videos. Been very helpful.
good.
I've taken a lot of notes during this past week, but being able to watch these videos on YouTube, it's been great. Uh,
Good.
Something else with the quizzes. Um, so as you could probably see, my first attempt was to using no notes whatsoever. I go back, study, look over all the information, if you will, and then go back and take the quiz again. Um, yeah, it's
That's a good. I mean, that's a good way. As long as you. I mean, the quizzes are meant to be a learning experience, not necessarily a test. So don't get. If you don't do well on it, that's okay. It's meant to point out to you these are the areas where you need to go back and work.
yeah. I just don't want you to look at those and be like, wow, this guy is a mess.
No, I don't think that at all.
Well, yeah, I sure hope not. Yeah, and I wanted to, as you could probably see, the results from the quizzes. Excuse me. Um, yeah, I just wanted you as a teacher to know, like, hey, my mind has been everywhere. Um, yeah, it's been a rough week, but yeah, I just between you and us guys talking, it's been rough.
Well, no, I can certainly relate. I mean, life happens around us, and it's very rarely convenient. So I completely get it that those things do impact you whether you want them to or not, and
Yeah.
so you certainly have my sympathies, and I know how hard it is to focus on this while you have those things going on. So, just
Well, I greatly appreciate it very much. But again, I just wanted you to know, like, okay, this guy is not, he's not an idiot. Yeah.
I definitely do not think that at all. You seem to be very earnest to me, and you certainly seem engaged and like you want to do this, and that's all I can
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah. I got some good news. Started with a terrible way to start, but got baby number 3 coming.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I know you got to be excited about that.
Man. Yeah. You start
How
the week. What's
how
up?
old are the others?
Oh, I got a 6-year-old and got one who turns 1 on Thursday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna have their hands full.
It's okay. I was deployed for our first birth, my son. Yeah,
What branch of service?
Marine Corps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
My dad. My father's a Army guy, and my father-in-law is a retired Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. So.
Yeah, I medically retired out back in February 17.
Mm-hmm.
Came down with MS. Like how, I don't know. They don't know, but it's good. It's wild. But I definitely am looking forward. I think this career path is, I'm excited. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good.
And, but yeah, I just wanted to pass that. Obviously, just you and I. I don't. Yeah,
Well, I am glad you told me because I always like to know when those kinds of things are going on, and
yeah.
if there's anything I can do for you to help you with the material or whatever, don't hesitate to let me know.
Well, I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Totally. Thank you.
You have a good day, and congratulations on the good news again.
Yeah. Hey, you're the first to know.
Well, I appreciate that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm excited for you.
Well,
I don't have any of my own, so I can be excited for other people when they have them.
well, thank you very much. I'm excited.
Oh, good, good.
Um,
Well, you have a good rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.